Boom. Okay. All right, good morning, world. Here we are today at the Crystal Clear Point Studios. We're talking again. Watch out. And I have with me today Dr. Matthew Pierce and Lulu Morris, the Apothecary Queen. So let's get right to it. What are we doing today?
Well, and we're having a little conversation before we kind of went on air that we all have different learning styles and how we like gain knowledge or we learn a new skill or whatever else like that. And I mean, I'm just really interested in knowing how people learn about things. Because I mean, I see people that can read something once and have it down pat, and I'm not that type of person. So I'm just interested, kind of in maybe discussing like your learning styles, both Luann and Deborah, and and just talking about our experiences in we're teachers, we're healers, we're entertainers, how all that kind of fits together.
Well,
So
you assume that we learn. Let's
um,
determine whether or not we do.
I'm not going to assume with you because I've actually seen you learn. I've seen you like take something on and like master it. So I mean, I can't assume. I'm going to know because I've seen you do it.
Well, I learn best trial by fire, I have found out. I just jump into it, make a mess out of it, say, oh, well, clean it up, and then go back and read the directions that I didn't read before. And like, oh, that's where I screwed up, and now it's done. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. That's really true. I mean, for the most part.
Uh,
Um,
when we were
Technology is not my friend.
no, well, when I worked in the operating room, we had a saying: see one, do one, teach one.
Oh, that's
Hmm.
smart.
So a lot of times what I do, I learn by watching, but then I learn better by doing it and
Well, I
hands on.
I am not auditory. So we were talking, like Matthew said before we got on here, and he was talking about a TED Talk. And I said, well, I have to admit this. And I said, this will be shocking, I'm sure, to most people if they listen. I didn't even know what a TED Talk was until about a year ago. I've never seen one. I hadn't heard about it until, last year. And I mean, I think they're great ideas, but um, I don't know. I'm not auditory. So the idea of sitting there listening to someone lecture for more than 10 minutes is just like, no, please, I don't want to. I'm very visual. I'm very kinesthetic, hands-on. Let's get in there, make a mess, then go in there and do it again the second time and do it right, and that's how I like to do it.
Well, I can learn auditory, but it's like sitting in a classroom. If I don't make notes,
Yeah.
then I have difficulty. So it's the actual writing that
Hmm.
helps me remember.
Yeah, me too.
And see,
It keeps me
I take it one
focused.
step further because I have to take like notes. I have to take notes in class. Okay. And I'm going to reveal something about myself because I was a little an overachiever in college.
What?
I would
What?
go into
No,
classroom.
no.
Yes. I would go into classroom. I had a notebook for classroom notes. Um, and so I would take those notes. Then I would come home and I would had another notebook that I would take and cross-reference everything that was in the lesson to the textbooks and everything else like that, and then write it down in there. And then to make sure that everything was incorporated in the right way, I would actually type all my notes. So I I went like, yeah. threefold. And this was at the time that we didn't have computers. So it was like I had a typewriter that I sat down and typed all my notes with. When I would show up to class, my instructors are like, well, why do we even need to give you the book? You've just created a new one, and it's just like, that's how I learn. And so that's how I did things. Now, even today, people look at me and go like, how do you plan a website? And I'm like, well, first I outline what you need and what's possible and what you have to have, and go from there. And it's like, okay, what's missing? Well, this and this, and so then I'll design that. And it's like, okay, well, from all of that, then I need to look and see what your visuals are. So send me pictures and so on and so forth, so I can see what colors you like and this and so on and so forth. From there, I'll come up with a palette, and then from the palette, I'll come up with an actual design for the website, and then present that to you and say, okay, what's the information that we want to put into this thing? So people say that I'm so verbose inside of my emails that sometimes they just like read the first part and kind of go,
I wasn't going to
I'm like,
say that, but it's true. It's true.
but I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to, I want to make sure that, I put everything out there. I don't want someone coming back to me and is like, well, you didn't tell me that.
Well, he
Oh,
sent me an email last night, and here's what I took out of the email. What the fuck are you doing? Stop it. I think you screwed something up. We'll fix it.
I
And
didn't
so I
say I
said in
thought.
four
I was like, I don't
sentences,
know what you're doing. Okay. I have no clue what you're doing.
but it took him 5 paragraphs to say what I said in 4 sentences.
Well, sometimes, Deborah, you need 5 paragraphs. Okay.
No,
Just
I
FYI.
don't. I don't need
Since
5
you're not
paragraphs.
auditory, he needs to explain it.
I need to explain it. Yeah. I need to explain it.
No,
Next
just
time I'll
say
just
you're
send a
fucking up. I'll stop.
No,
I'm
next time I'll just
intelligent
send a
enough to know
fucking
to
video on
stop.
like 11:35 at night. Deborah, no, I am not going to do this right now. Okay.
I didn't expect you to. I was just giving him information to have when he needed it. So, because here's what I do. Okay, this is so unfair to the rest of the world, but I don't give a shit. So, when I know that they're going to need information for something, be it a project for tomorrow or a year from now, I send it to them. Okay, I send it to you. Hold on to it. Not my problem anymore. It's off my to-do list.
I texted him Friday when y'all were in Terrell, and I said, blah, 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 blah. I don't mean today. I don't mean
Yeah,
right
I'm going
this
to have to
minute.
start adding that.
But I
I don't
need
mean
you to
today.
know this.
I don't mean today.
I don't mean
But
today.
I take messages as if I'm not answering and I'm not communicating. So I mean, my biggest thing is, I mean, I have friends that, they'll text me something and they'll be okay with like not hearing back,
Oh no,
and
you
I'm
got
like,
to text me
no.
back. No, no, no,
I was
no,
like,
no, no.
no, you need to
No, I gotta,
communicate.
even if it's just a 1 word thing, but if I ask you a question, it better be more than 1 word. Okay. When the answer,
Well,
if I ask a
you
question,
should,
I expect information.
people should at least acknowledge that they got your
Yes,
message.
yes.
They don't have to
That's
talk
one
to
of
you
my pet
right that
peeves, but
moment.
I mean,
Yeah,
but
and you know what pisses me off? Wait a minute. Now that we're talking about messages, wait a minute. Let me go down this side street for a second. When you're dealing with someone who is in a professional capacity, whether it be they be a client or a vendor, or you're working with a nonprofit or your volunteer system, and they're in a role of authority, I think that not only do they have a moral obligation to acknowledge your message, but they have a professional obligation. And nothing pisses me off more than to get ignored in a professional capacity. It makes me want to just pull their hair, slap all
I
4 of their
mean,
cheeks.
I've had to learn that, sometimes in a professional capacity, I mean, no, I agree, totally agree. You need to reply back. Even if it's like, you know what, I get what you're saying. However, I'm not interested. And so, we can have this conversation in 6 months or, whatever else. I think that that's better than just, saying, well, we can talk about this later.
Well, especially if you know the person, because
Yeah.
Scott laughed at me years ago because I'm not knowledgeably based. So, but I'm very good at it now compared to the average person who's not in the industry.
Mhm.
But used to, I would get these spam emails and I would say, no, thank you. And email them back and he'd go, stop that, because all you're doing is giving them more fuel to add to the fire. Well, I didn't know that, because to me, being a good old Southern girl, what the heck, gal, a good old Southern gal, that was just good manners, you know?
Mhm.
No, thank you. No, thank you. So, I had to get discerning.
And you have to do that, especially with technology. You have to be discerning. Okay. But I mean, bringing this back to learning styles. Okay. I had some amazing teachers in college, just as far as communication, interpersonal communication, mass communication, all of those, different classes that I took at the university, about like communication theory and how people communicate and how people want to be communicated with. And I learned a lot about that. And I mean, I had one teacher that was just, she was a business person. I mean, she loved business. And when she taught her classes, it was from a perspective of, you are the leader of your own business. Okay. How do you respond? How do you like take and, um, you know, respond to requests and questions and things like that? And she's like, never take offense at someone asking you a question. Even if you in your head, you're like, oh my God, how stupid can you be? She goes, they might not necessarily understand what you're trying to get across. And you might be like up here when they're down here. He says, but answer that question like it's like, you know what? That's a great question. I
Well,
love
and
that.
say it like you mean it. So often people say the right thing with the wrong tone of voice.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
That's very true.
so when I was teaching for the National Alliance of Mental Illness, one of the things that we focused on was how to have really clear communications, especially teaching parents on how to communicate with their child who had a mental illness. And that's a very difficult communication situation.
Mhm.
And so I came up with this system called Chunk for communications. And it's clear, concise, honest, uninhibited. I can never remember what N stands for, but the last one, K, is for kind. Be kind in your communications. And so I use that in my coaching style, and I use it when I want to in my personal life. Everything's a choice for me.
Well, with
That's part of being good at what you do. You can choose whether to use that tool or not use
yeah,
that tool.
with my oldest child, I would say I would give him the look and raise my eyebrow, and he would know he was in trouble. With my younger child, I tried that, and he would look at me like
But I know.
he did not go on visual cues. So I had to look at him and go, see mom doing this? That means that she's upset with you and you're misbehaving. And if you don't stop, I will get out the spoon. So I had to explain to him what my facial expressions meant.
Well, and people don't understand. I get tickled and then I get pissed off when with all the talk about autism and being on the spectrum and all this stuff. Frankly, we're all on a spectrum of some sort. You know,
Mhm.
as good as I am at reading energy and understand people's motives and understanding patterns and stuff, there are still times I look at my friend and go, "Why are you looking at me like that? What are you trying to convey to me? This means nothing to me. I don't." So I can get where your youngest son was coming from, you know? And so I might know that you're upset, but I won't know why you're upset sometimes. And I will probably
Mhm.
keep doing what I'm doing because I don't know that's what's upsetting me. Does that make sense?
Yes. And so when I would give him the look past that, he would go, what is it that's going on, mom?
Yeah.
He would
Yeah.
ask.
Exactly.
And I would
Exactly.
say, you're doing this and you need to stop.
That's when the people are in their analytical side of their brain and they're not in their energetic or emotional side. And I live in both worlds. And I like staying in the analytical during the day with people I don't trust. And I like being in my emotional energetic when I'm around friends that I love and I
Mhm.
trust, because it's exhausting otherwise, but it can get you into trouble.
Mhm. Yeah.
But that's
I mean,
another
so
way.
go ahead, Luann.
That's another way of communicating though, with your face and
Yeah.
I I took a class in communication theory in college, and I loved the classroom discussions that we would have. Okay, because the premise of the class was there's a the or like a kind of a thought process that's called okay, hold on a second, just pull it back. Watzlawick is a communication theorist. Okay, Watzlawick is a communication theorist. And he surmises that one cannot not communicate.
That's right.
There's just no way that someone cannot communicate. It just happens. Okay. You know, we hear about resting bitch face. Okay. Well, you might not be saying anything, but people know where you're at. Okay. And when Luann was talking about that, I was like, I totally get exactly what she's saying. Okay. But there are people that will ignore like different cues because they don't know how to communicate that way.
Well,
So, I mean,
they ignore them or they don't know how to interpret them. Because you
to
can
process that.
communicate to me in French, but I'm not going to understand what you're saying.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so and that's what I do love about NLP. I have a love-hate relationship with NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. And because they teach you in NLP that you are responsible for the quality of your communication. And this is the part I love about that. And they teach you how to listen to the patterns of someone's speech to see if they're kinesthetic, visual, or auditory. So, like if I'm listening to you and I know that you're visual, instead of saying, well, I hear what you're saying, you're going to go, I don't know what the fuck that means. That means nothing to me subconsciously. But if I go, I see what you're saying, and I know that you're visual, we are automatically connected and we have automatic rapport. Or if I know that you're kinesthetic, well, I feel what you're saying. So just changing
exactly.
that one word in a sentence
One word.
structure totally changes the rapport level that you have in that communication. So that is why knowing how people respond and how they learn can be very important in both business and personal relationships. I have to approach most of the people in my family kinesthetically. I do my best work visually communicating. I see, blah, 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 you know. So I have to make a conscious choice to switch what I'm saying when I'm communicating with them if I want good results. It's
I get
just a
that.
decision. So
what would you say that your learning style is? I mean, how do you learn the best? And if you can give me an
experience.
example, huh?
I really do like experiences. I mean, I'm a hands-on person. I like doing it. It's like Luann, this Canva stupid situation is a perfect example. I've had a mental block on Canva. And I didn't want to learn it because I like doing things that are easy for me. I'm kind of lazy that way. So the things that I'm really good at, the reason I'm good at them is because they're easy for me. And so I excel at them. Canva was not my friend the first time I sat down to do it. And Luann said she'd do it. I'm like, good, I'm done. And so circumstances in my life have put me in a position where I'm like, do I want to be held hostage because I don't know how to do something, or am I going to have freedom? So I made the decision yesterday, I'm going to have freedom. I'm going to master this. So I sat down and actually spent time, which I had not done in the past, learning Canva, making mistakes, trial and error. Not only is it good for me, I enjoy it. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. That's the first thing. A lot of people hate to make mistakes, not me. I've been married 5 times, go figure. You know. So I like doing it until I get it right. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that experience. I don't think most people do. I don't, maybe I'm wrong, but most people seem to be afraid to make mistakes or to make a mess. Not me.
Absolutely. I think people have a very, very bad relationship with failure. I think that, you know, they kind of consider failure as something that's a bad thing. To me, you know, failure means, well, that didn't work.
I don't understand the word failure. I see it as an opportunity to learn.
Yep.
And I either learned it well or I have more to learn. And
Well,
I don't know how I have that attitude. I've had it all my life.
But I also think that that's one of the number one things that stands people or holds people back from accomplishing what they truly want and what they truly like can excel at inside of their life is that they have this fear of failure, even though it is made up, that it's not there because they're like, well, I heard someone fail because they did it this, and this way. Well, that's someone else. You might have said, okay, I started a business and it failed within 6 months because, of this, and this. I failed. So therefore, I'm always going to be a failure at business. And I've had many a conversation with people that it was like, well, you have to put your energy behind it. Okay. If you're not willing to put your energy behind it, then you're probably going to fail. Okay. Maybe you weren't doing the right thing. Maybe the thing that you were trying to sell was because you were trying to sell what everybody else was trying to sell. Maybe your business was oversaturated and you didn't find your niche, you know?
I think attitude
Um,
is 100% of the problem.
absolutely. But
You know,
I've seen more and more people that have set themselves up for failure, instead of having a healthy relationship with failure and learning from it.
well, let's define failure. So let's take this podcast as an example. Okay.
Mhm.
I love doing this podcast. I look forward to doing this podcast. It does something for me internally that I don't get anywhere else. I had someone ask me the other day, bitch that she is, um, going, well, don't you feel bad that your podcast isn't successful? And I went, I hadn't thought about it not being successful. Why are you asking that question? Well, you're not monetized and you don't have a lot of subscribers and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, first of all, did you ever ask me if that was my intent? Was that my intent for starting the
Right.
podcast? Now, getting monetized, that'd be great, but it wasn't my focus. Having a million followers, it might be great, it might not. I really don't care. You know, I do this for my own personal satisfaction, and I'm thrilled I found some people that wanted to go on this ride with me. So I am happy with the results because I get to talk to the two of you. I get to use my mind. I get to challenge my belief system. I get to challenge y'all's belief system.
Mhm.
I get to say things that I want to say that I never get an opportunity to say because it wouldn't be polite. So I just found that question weird. I found it weird.
Well, it's interesting to get three people together to have a conversation about maybe frivolous stuff, but then really deep stuff too,
Mhm.
because we have discussed and it's good to have different opinions. And I don't necessarily have to agree with them, but I'd be glad to listen to them.
Well, it's kind of like the
See,
old-fashioned salons where people used to come together, they have dinner at candlelight. They didn't have anything to do but either converse or play games. And they would talk about politics or the day's
Mhm.
issues and stuff. And I really wonder, I'm not going to sit in judgment because I don't know what other people do in their lives, but I really wonder how many people sit around at least once a week having a deep, in-depth conversation about something that can make them laugh or move them to tears. And we
No,
do both almost every week.
yeah,
no.
That's my
I mean,
question.
I will tell you from just my personal life. I mean, that kind of stopped when my parents got divorced, and I
Oh,
was like 8 years old. I mean, so I couldn't tell you like um one of my partners and we would sit down and we would have those kind of conversations. Um, you know, did we have a set night? No. Did we have a set time? No. It was just that I could converse with him and I could have conversations that were deep. I could have conversations that were shallow, but he would do the same thing. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's, the tradition behind, that kind of stuff is really lost. I mean, my dad and my grandfather used to go to the barber shop and they would sit out there and they would shoot the shit for 3 or 4 hours. you know I can remember my mom complaining that my dad was gone for most of the day, when he went to get a haircut. But he didn't say jack shit to her when she was out for like almost like 2 days getting her
no,
hair done and shopping for clothes. So I mean, yeah, I get it. I totally get it, but it's something that's kind of lost right now.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day. Luann and I have spent a lot of private time talking about the other podcasts that I'm doing about my life. I'm no angel, but I've met the devil. And, I get a lot of negative and judging remarks about the fact that I've been married 5 times, and I have, you know, all of my life. Like it's some crime to be married 5 times. But anyway, and one guy on Facebook last week said, "Well, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your picker?" And I thought, well, that's what an asshole, but what occurred to me, because I started thinking about that, and I was like, was there something wrong with me? And no, I think it was just the opposite. I married 5 men that I liked. I enjoyed their company. I had these kind of conversations with all 5 of them. All of them. They all made me laugh. They all made me think. They all exposed me to different ideas and ways of life that I'd never had. And I have the ability to see people the way God sees them. And that's who I thought I was marrying when I did. What I lacked was the practicality of who they could be to comparing that to who they were in the moment.
Yeah.
That's where I had a gap in my situation. But they all, even though I had some really horrible things happen in those relationships, I feel like I got so much positive as well. I don't have any regrets about any of those marriages. And I have a hard time conveying that concept to where people can accept that and understand it.
Well, I think it's coming from people's experiences. Okay. And it's kind of like we're talking about failure. Okay. People have a really bad relationship with failure. Well, kind of see divorce as failure, you know? And
Instead
so
of
Whatever.
having,
taking it on as a learning experience.
exactly. I mean,
Well, where would we be if Edison had given up?
yeah.
He had many, many, many failures.
Mhm. Well,
Well,
I mean, Tesla would have probably stepped in and did what, never mind. I'm not going to go there.
no, yeah.
But no, I get what
Well,
you're
I
saying. What you're saying.
I would have preferred to have the storybook tell of, I married my high school sweetheart and we were happily married for the rest of our lives. That's a great story. But there are so many aspects of my life that are part of me now that I never would have gotten into my life if I had not had that exposure to those other people. And, I had a horrible experience at the end of my first marriage. I mean, he raped me at the end of our marriage. And but I was talking with Scott, my present husband now, and that's one of the things that is so great in our relationship. We can talk about everything, and we can actually spend 2 weeks in a car traveling and never have an argument because we just love to talk about things. And I said, it's really funny because I don't think about the rape of my first marriage. What I think about is the music he exposed me to, and that he took me and exposed me to martial arts, and that was a huge impact in my life. And all these other things, and there was a lot of dark things he exposed me to, but I just felt like it made me a better person and a wiser person. And so I don't have a lot of negative associations with him. I don't ever, I would never want to be back in a marriage with him, but I guess I don't have any regrets is what I'm saying. You know, I don't say, well, I wish that hadn't happened or blah. And I can actually listen to a song that reminds me of that time with him and be happy listening to that song, you know? I mean, is that weird?
No, I don't think so at all. Because I mean, even though you can like say that was a bad experience, you can also say I had the good experiences as well, and not discount the entire relationship because of what happened. Now, there are some, I mean, that were very traumatic. I mean, just saying, as a blanket statement to everyone listening, is that, if you're in an unsafe situation or you've had a traumatic situation, okay, I'm not going to judge you for having like an adverse reaction to the relationship. I
Oh,
mean,
no, no,
no.
no.
But I mean, I can see, where you're saying, Deborah, is that you can see the good that happened out of that relationship. And I think it's pathetic that people can hop on Facebook and say, well, you've been married 5 times. What's wrong with you? Well, I just don't get that. I just don't get that at all. Because, to me, I mean, it was like, so you've had 5 marriages. Something obviously happened that you're no longer married. What that is, I don't know. I want to know some of it, but what that is, I don't know. And I'm certainly not going to judge you for it because I haven't been married 5 times, but I'm going to tell you what, I've had more than 5 relationships.
Well, of course, most people have. Well, I was very eloquent in my response to them. I said, fuck you.
I was very elegant.
And I don't normally just say that to people. I say fuck a lot, but I don't normally say fuck you. I'm like, what else do you say? I was not going to defend myself. There was nothing to defend in my mind. But you know what? You're being an ass, and I'm not even going to give you the consideration of explaining to you why you're being an ass. So it's just fuck you, and I went on with my
The
life.
proper answer is there's nothing wrong with me. What's wrong with you?
Why are you such a fuckhead? Why are you such a prick? Why are you such an asswad? I could go on and on with my list.
Okay, so getting back kind of on the subject of learning, okay, and I kind of want to know this, but I'm sure that maybe Deborah, you've had experience with Luann more than I have. I want to know your learning process for the creations that you create for your, ancient herbal apothecary. I just think that like that, I mean, Deborah kind of mentioned that you have like this laboratory set up in your living room and, and so
Bad
I have this thought
scientist.
in my head, that you're in there and you're doing all this stuff. But how do you learn this stuff? I mean, what is your learning process?
If there's let me tell you how it started. There is a company called Learning Herbs, and they had a kit that you could buy to make elderberry syrup. Uh, there was something with echinacea. I don't remember everything that was in it. So the first thing I did was I had a friend who had this little cough, and I made the elderberry syrup. Well, from there it just kind of escalated. Well, can you make something for this and make something for that? And so I started, I didn't know as much about the herbs then as I do now, but I would research each herb and find out what are their, what are they supposed to do?
Mhm.
And most of this is from shamans or healers that have done this for years, decades,
Or
centuries.
old Southern women. Don't leave out the old Southern women.
Can't leave them
Because
out.
you just, yeah. So it started with just following a recipe. I was given a recipe, I was given the ingredients, and I made it. And the next thing I did was the throat spray. And that's what I did. I found a recipe, I made it. Now, since then, I have tweaked it and added things and subtracted things. And that's how it happens because um, recipes are all over the place about herbal concoctions. And they may be exactly what I do, but it's because these recipes have been passed around and passed around because herbalists want you to be healthy.
Mhm.
They want you, but some people do not have the um, desire to make their own herbal remedies. So that's where I come in, and just like this face serum, I had done some research on the different essential oils, and we actually worked on this with Deborah, and this is what I wanted to do, she said. And so I started doing some research because I was really into the essential oils. Well, since then, I tried to use vitamin C powder. Didn't work because you have to have an emulsifying agent, and even using an emulsifying agent, it didn't go into solution. So I did find other extracts, a vitamin C extract that's water soluble. So it's just, what do you want the herb to do? I mean, there are a lot of herbs that do the same things. And they're usually unique to different people, because what works for you may not work for Deborah, and vice
Exactly.
versa. So,
Exactly. And there's a lot of herbs that you'll have like 5 or 6 that will do the same thing, right?
mhm.
So you just kind of use your intuition and your guidance to figure out which one you want to use. And of course, price is a factor sometimes too.
Yeah, like the neroli that's $525 an ounce. Yeah, you have to be careful with that sort of thing. And I have made some concessions, and I did find out that vitamin C is usually what's the word? Made more potent. I don't by
More
using,
powerful.
yeah, it has a helper called ferulic 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 acid.
Okay.
And when you put the two together, the vitamin C works better.
Yeah, I
So
just think this is fascinating.
it's a
I,
lot of reading, it's a lot
yeah.
of research.
She's
It's a
so good at
lot.
researching though, because she's right. I'm like, all right, Luann, I want this. And
Well,
I'm having to buy 5 products to make this work. So I want it to do this, this, and this, and this, and I want it in one product. And man, she's on the books. And
so
I'll even have forgotten I told her I wanted it. And she'll call me a week later going, I found it. We're gonna do
part
this,
of it
this, and
is
this.
I started my working life as an LVN.
Mhm.
And during that time I was going to school is when I discovered the Karaya powder to help with decubitus,
Mhm.
which is a sore on the butt for a friend that was bedridden. So it was about the research, and a lot of times that goes hand in hand with being a nurse. And then I ended up in biology because I was going to go back to school and get my RN. Well, that didn't happen because I got involved in biology and science. And I did that for 30 years. So I was actually in the lab coming up with things to work into the classroom to help students learn. So I spent a lot of my time experimenting and trying the different things for the instructors.
Right.
Now, there were some things that were set pat. And I laughed at myself because I have been trying to come up with a gummy for my syrup.
Ooh, I'm excited. I want a gummy.
Let me tell you, I was reading an article and it said they were using agar, and I went, that's what I used. That's what I used in the labs. We used a lot of agar when we were making media. And I thought, why didn't I think of that? So they used agar, just a plain agar, to help set the gummies.
I'm
Oh my
excited.
gosh.
I love
Yeah, when
gummies.
are we gonna get the elderberry gummies? Because oh my God.
Well, and I'm notorious for taking enough elderberry syrup that it gives me diarrhea. So now I'm really in trouble because I'm going to eat a whole bag of those at one sitting.
Well, okay, so the thing that really, really impresses me about Luann, okay, is that, I just happened to say, hey, I'm researching this, because I have some issues going on right now. And, I was like, well, what could I like supplement as far as like herbally, to help out? And I mentioned soursop to Luann. And honestly, I just said, what do you know about it? And she's like, you know what? I don't know. But then all of a sudden, she's texting me and saying, hey, I found out this, 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 and this. And I'm like, wow. I just like I love that passion, but it's like I kind of want to know what makes you tick when it
Well,
comes to that kind of stuff. It's just
the other thing is a lot of my herbal stuff are based in science, and I do a lot of research on uh, National Institute of Health, where they do, you know, uh, shoot, experiments
yeah.
that for different kinds of things, and they have a lot on herbs that they have actually experimented with. And I think that's where I found that they were using the ferulic acid to boost the vitamin C. But they're very technical.
Yeah.
And so you have to know what part is important and what part is not important. So there's scientific papers that I read a lot. And that goes back to my biology and learning what's scientific. So it's not just, I think that I'm finally ready to make the pain lotion that will be effective for people, because I did find out that turmeric essential oils does not have the curcumin in it. Curcumin is what helps relieve pain. So I have a extract instead.
And it makes a huge difference.
And it will make a difference in the pain.
Okay. I'm putting down for a bottle.
Well, so would you say, Luann, that since you like to research, that's a lot of reading. So would you say that you're visual and your learning, style?
Isn't that funny that I don't know, like research is kind of the basis of everything I do, but if somebody's trying to teach me something, I want to see them do it.
Yeah. Well, that's still visual. You're watching. So it's still a visual learning tool.
When I was in the operating room, I had never worked there when I first came out of nursing school, and the tech that was teaching me said, "How do you know to turn the instrument that way?" And I said, "It just makes sense." Because
So are you visual, you think, Matthew, or do you think you're kinesthetic because you have to write everything down and organize it? How would you classify that?
I am probably visual kinesthetic. I mean, I do a lot of reading. I mean, I'm a research hound. I love doing research, but I can't let it stop there. I have to do something to kind of like solidify it, you know? So if I'm researching like, herbs that help blood sugar, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to research the hell out of it. But, I'm going to create a document for myself that has pictures and diagrams and, so on and so forth. So when I go back to look at it, it's organized by my hand, So I think that that's it. Now, when I get into like coding and like development and so on and so forth, okay, it definitely is more hands-on. I can do as much reading as I can, but with programming, it's like if you don't get the result that you went for, something's wrong.
Right,
And
right.
so to me, that's very satisfying to do because I can sit there and say, well, why is this not working? Work through it and get to the point where it's like, that's what I did wrong. Okay.
Well, my
So
first venue in college was learning Fortran and COBOL and
Yeah.
So it seems like all three of us are visual kinesthetic, but if I were going to try to classify general society based upon the popularity of social media these days, I would say that a large population percentage is visual auditory, because it's not just enough to have a post, you have to have a meme. And now it's not just you have to have a meme, you have to have a video, and it has to have music, and it has to have all this stuff. So it just seems like we're becoming a very visual auditory society. And I'm just wondering how that will affect productivity in the next couple of generations. Because if you're watching and you're listening, you're not doing very much. Or are you? How will that
Well,
play
I
out?
mean, you take a look at the recent trends on social media, okay, and the younger crowd. The younger crowd is like, well, I'll just get on TikTok and become monetized, and that's how I'll make my living.
And a
Okay.
lot of them are.
A lot of them are, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot more that are trying to go that direction. Okay. Will not take a job to sustain themselves, and they're winding up on the street.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that, but that's the mentality that we have these days that, oh, I'll just make it big on TikTok. I'll go do a couple dances, and everybody's going to love me. There's more to it, people. There's more to it.
Well, I'm now able to get monetized not on one, but two channels on TikTok, thanks to my daughter. And I'm going to be taking the plunge on TikTok
I'm
on
going to
one
call
of
you on the
them.
carpet again, Deborah. I mean, it's like your daughter does a great job. She really does. But if it wasn't you showing up,
Oh, I know.
those
But
channels wouldn't exist.
but she's doing something I don't like to do. So
Okay.
she's filling the gaps for me because there are some things that I just do not want to do, and if I don't want to do them, I won't. And I know that about me, and so I'm excited that she's got me to that place so that I can start doing that. But now I'm having to wrap my head around what do I want to say, how do I want to do it, and there's a lot of kinks that I don't know. Like, is it 10 minutes or 20 minutes? Do I want to go live or do I want to pre-record? That type of thing. Because one is for Miles of Smiles. They have their own channel just like this. And then another one is me personally. In Miles of Smiles, we're going to do uplifting words because we are an inspirational, intuitive entertainment company. And so we're going to do like little mini readings or little quotes or sayings to encourage you and tell you how wonderful you are.
Perfect.
On my personal channel, because I'm such a fucking glutton for punishment, I guess, I'm going to take the videos I've done telling my life story and chunk them into smaller pieces. And I'm going to use that channel to tell my story. Why, you ask? Because I think that there is a value in my life, number one. Number two, I think you can learn from those values. And number three, it helps my memory. And I'm doing it to make some of this make sense to myself.
Yeah.
So
And please don't get me wrong. Your daughter does an amazing job at
she
like posting your stuff
does.
and getting it out there. She does an amazing job at that. Okay. And I just when I say this, I always want people to take credit where credit is due. Okay. She does an amazing job posting, but without your posts, it wouldn't be anything.
No, and it's really funny. She and I are a good team. We have a very odd relationship. We should talk about this sometime, about personal relationships and how they seem very dysfunctional, but they're not. They're just two odd people coming together in the way that they can. And that right there is a whole book in itself. And my daughter and I, the happiest times that we have had was when she worked at my center, when the Council of Families had our own a holistic center, and she actually helped me run that for 2 years. And she is a fucking powerhouse in certain areas. It was just incredible to see how she worked with the children, how she was able to get people to donate time and money and goods. I mean, she just brings people together. Odd people, yes, but she brings people together. And she can't manage some of the things in her own life sometimes, but she can manage everybody's problems like Mr. Wizard. I mean, it's fascinating to watch her. So
I think that's
I,
brilliant. I really
I
do.
love
I
my
mean,
daughter.
because it's like she does. She really does do a great job for you. Okay. The one, I mean, that I have a problem with branding and making sure it's consistent and things like that. And that all, aside and everything, you're doing a great job. Okay. I mean, the only thing that I would say is, you know, I want to see more of you. I want to see more of you kind of on the spot. And, no, not like that, please.
Not that. No, no, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
So,
one
but I
wants to
mean,
see that.
Yeah.
I got
Okay,
the
that
best,
wasn't
the
clear.
best.
It wasn't concise. It was kind, and I was uninhibited.
There you go. Okay. Well, so I got some of the best advice from, a person that I have a working relationship with. And this, because I told him the same thing. It's like, I can't create content. I just, I'm just not there. And he goes, well, never try to figure out what to post. Always report.
Oh,
Okay, explain that a little bit.
Well, if you're sitting there and even if you take it to chat GPT and say, give me like 10 things to speak on my podcast for the next, week or so. Okay. That's trying to figure out what you're going to do. Okay. It's more to the thing is like you are out having coffee. Okay. And something in that coffee just inspired you and was like, oh my God, this makes me feel like home. Report. Go live and say, you know what, I was just in a coffee shop and I was having a cup of coffee and I just got this overwhelming feeling of being home again. That it was so comfortable, it was so relaxed, it was so, and that's what he meant by reporting. Like you don't have to figure things out to put online, just report.
Well, that's what I do
Because
on Facebook. I just I tell people that the good things are like when I was really pissed off at that coffee shop 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
you know? So I do that so I can just carry that type of process over to TikTok, is what you're saying.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And you're
Okay.
gonna start finding, I mean, you know, I'm a numbers guy. I like looking at numbers. Okay. Those are the videos that are probably going to be reacted to higher than something that you put out there or tried to figure out.
Okay. Well, I can do that because I'm very spontaneous. I don't have a problem with that. So
Good.
to kind of start us into closing, I would tell people, first of all, figure out what your learning style is and try to put yourself in situations that feed into your strengths. So if you're auditory, listening to podcasts and TED Talks, that's right up your alley. If you need visuals, then you want to, you can still do TED Talks, but you want to look for the ones that have graphs and visuals and things that you can grasp. If you're on for hands-on, go and volunteer, be an intern or something at places. But the bottom line is do something and don't be afraid to make a mess. You got a broom, right? Clean it up, start over. So there are no mistakes, there are no failures. There's only learning opportunities. That's my philosophy. Yeah, I want to
I
add to
like that
that.
philosophy. No, I think that, I mean, like I said, I think people have a very bad relationship with the word failure. I don't think that's a bad word at all. I think that, you know, once we go through like a failure, we can figure out what didn't work, you know, and from there, learn and go forward.
There's
I'll
my little
use my
dog.
rebranding as a perfect example. I was not feeling good about Herbal Lou and it just wasn't taking up. And then something happened that my Facebook pages were all hacked and they started using my logo. And I was like, okay, I got to start over.
Hmm.
And I have since January 1st, just, and I'm very close to announcing it to the world. So it'll be great. I'm
Okay, we have to
excited
go.
about
There's
it.
pieces of a dead snake on my floor.
Oh no. Okay. Well, then we'll say goodbye
Oh
really
my
quickly.
God.
Your
I didn't
dog
even
was
see that
just there.
show up.
Well, Iggy just went over and smelt it, and I noticed it, and I'm like, "What is that?" And I'm looking. It's two pieces of a small garden snake,
Pardon.
I hope, but it's dead, and it's just the pieces. So I need to look to make sure there's no more pieces in my house. I have
What
hunting
a way
dogs.
to end a podcast. Thanks for arranging that, Deborah. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's always fun at my house.
Yeah, thank you Gee, so much for bringing that up. Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, Lulu, tell them how to get you and tell them what your website's going to be when it's up.
So www. ancientherbalapothecary.com. No spaces or anything. Or you can email me at Luann at ancientherbalapothecary.com.
All right. All right. We're looking forward to people buying your products and I'm sure I can come up with some things I want you to mix for me personally soon. So,
Same here. Same here.
all right, Dr. Pierce, tell us
Uh,
about you.
you can get a hold of me at matthewapierce.com or matthew@matthewapierce.com. I am also kind of like more pushing connectionsdesignstudios.com for all of your website SEO, that type of things. And you can get a hold of me at matthew@connectionsdesignstudios.com or matthew@metaphysicalevents.com.
And this is Deborah Colleen Rose, and I have an unofficial announcement to make. First of all, this show is sponsored by Miles of Smiles Events. We are an inspirational, intuitive entertainment company. So, yes, we read cards and we do all that fun stuff, handwriting analysis. But the bottom line is the entire team, and you're looking at part of it right now. We're all intuitives, and we can do anything based upon anything because you're going to get a message regardless. So, check us out at milesofsmilesevents.com. The second thing is that I am expanding my own personal services. I am used to be a spiritual coach. I'm going back into spiritual coaching, and I will be rebranding myself as that with the help of Dr. Pierce's expertise on SEOs and branding, and he will whip me into shape as he always does. Because we're both Doms. I know.
Luann.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to be getting back. I realized that I needed to take a hiatus for several years to, I guess it's kind of like the guru going to the mountain or something. But I've gotten a lot more clarity, and a lot more, confidence in what I do and how I do it. And it's just like Dr. Pierce has been saying, I'm showing up. Here I am. I'm showing up, and you can't shut me up and you can't shut me down. So here I come, world. And
It's
you'll be able to,
time.
yeah, you'll be able to see all that stuff at deborahcollingrose.com. And between the three of us, you'll also start seeing, in the next year, online classes and different things. And we may even just start our own Lou Matt Deb talks. Lou Matt Deb. Lou Matt Deb. I like that. Lou Matt Deb. Lou Matt Deb. Lou Matt Deb talks. So you never know. So we're rocking and rolling. You can't keep us down. So give us a shout if you have any questions. If you want to come on the show, we'll let you maybe. You gotta, we're not gonna let you get on here and talk about politics. That ain't happening. But if you want to talk about something that interests me, email me and we'll bring you on. So, all right, everybody say bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
See y'all later.